Good morning. Tim Golding, State Director for Americans for Prosperity here in Michigan. And we are with Tim Creech, local realtor, to talk about housing in Michigan.
Good morning, everybody.
We are at a crisis, Tim, where we don't have enough houses for people to buy, and the ones that are available are too expensive because we've zoned in ways that don't allow us to build homes that are affordable on the land that we have. So I want to talk to you about the bills that are being presented in the House. They're a series of 9 bills at this point. Representative Grant and Representative Aragona are the main drivers of this, and we've been helping them. So I want to get your take as a realtor. What are you seeing in the market, and how do you think these bills overall will help provide affordable housing and abundant housing for Michiganders?
Well, Tim, I'm so excited to see a great bipartisan effort trying to take on a very complex problem. Right at the moment, we're seeing a shift in the way people like to use their homes. They want to be able to do things like grandparents want to be able to live with son and daughter who in turn have grandchildren. They want to all live together in what's often called an alternative dwelling unit. We want to see people build smaller homes, such as the tiny home, as many people like to say it. They want to have more than one home on a piece of property. So many different kinds of ways that we want to have and need to have affordable housing. And unfortunately, over many different years, we have built up restrictions in zoning and usage and the way governments process requests and applications that it's just gotten to the point where it's a logjam. And that's why we're seeing such a limited amount of building permits. And whenever you have a restriction of anything, you're going to drive up prices and make it very difficult for people to afford anything. And when it's somebody's biggest purchase like a house, that's definitely a big problem.
Yeah, supply and demand is a real issue with housing. As you look at these different 9 bills that are being presented, and there will be more in the future that will help eliminate some of this backlog, which demographic that you work with on a regular basis do you think will see the biggest impact, the greatest benefit when these get passed? Is it the first-time home buyer? Is it the older people that want to move into a condo that is not available right now to downsize? What do you think that looks like?
I would say if I had to make it look like a picture, I would do a barbell. And the one side of the weight would be the first-time home buyer for sure. The other end of the barbell is going to be that senior opportunity. It's so difficult for good senior housing, something that's got limited steps, easy access, people that have, mobility issues as they age. And not everybody wants to go into an expensive assisted living facility for a variety of reasons, with cost being one of the biggest ones. But first-time home buyers also are really in a very difficult spot. What people don't realize is that the middle of the barbell is oftentimes the people that seem economically isolated from these challenges, but it's all one great big wheel, and that gear turns for everybody. So people can say, this isn't really my problem because I'm in my comfortable income situation, but at some point you're going to want to live somewhere when you retire, and you probably have children or grandchildren that need to have an affordable house. So realistically, this is everybody's challenge.
Yeah, I think it is definitely a challenge. That's a good way to put it, a polite way to put it. It's putting people in a bind, and I know a lot of young people looking for houses today really feel like they have no hope. And we at Americans for Prosperity believe in freedom and opportunity, and part of that is owning a home and being able to live affordably and in Michigan. There's a lot of things that can't be built that used to be built back in the day before all these zoning restrictions came to be. And a lot of the communities that we love today, take Detroit, Plymouth, a lot of different, pick an area. If those different communities that we love that are walkable and accessible were destroyed for some reason, they couldn't be rebuilt under the new zoning restrictions, which I find wholly egregious. So we need to change these things, and we really need to get to a point where we give the property owner, the developer who owns the land, or just a single family that owns the land to be able to build the house they want. We used to be able to build duplexes alongside single-family residences. We can't do that in most places anymore. Do you think there's a need for something like that to get people into starter homes to be able to have duplexes? Have you had people ask you for that, or do you see a need for that?
Absolutely. From a couple perspectives, we have people that want to be able to have a duplex, and everybody always, oftentimes the villain is the person that owns multifamily, the landlord, if you will. But that's not always the case. Most times we see that kind of request coming from somebody that would like to live in one side, maybe rent out the other side, or have a family member in the other side. They can't do it. I come from this a couple perspectives. I am a realtor in southern Michigan. I was actually a banker for 25 years and ran the lending areas in different parts of my career. But I sat on the zoning commission for a community called Madison, which is just south of Adrian. And I come with a lot of different perspective. Usually what we see is townships try to bottleneck their zoning to serve the interest of the people that are in power at that moment. And they don't give regard for future development. So many communities have basically made area maps of where they'll allow certain kind of buildings to happen, and they eliminate the opportunities to have multifamily. So if you wanted to build a duplex or a 3-unit or maybe a 4-unit building, maybe even a 6-unit building, you don't want to build a huge apartment complex, but you'd like to have a nice senior center with 5 or 6 apartments, for example, zoning alone won't allow you to do that, even though it might make good sense. I would love to see legislation that would have the townships be required to have a certain percentage of their usable space be allowing for that kind of zoning. That way, a specific group in power cannot eliminate the opportunities for people to do something with their property.
Yeah, we really need to get to a spot where we give the property owner, again, the right to do what they want with their property. Again, as long as that doesn't have health and safety and welfare issues, it's not violating those things. We need to get that right back to those people. A lot of the people that you work with, I assume, are looking for land to purchase homes. And I've seen this. I was a builder and remodeler for 25 years. Super frustrating when you want someone wants to build a home, but they have to buy 10 acres. They have to buy 20 acres. And then they have to build a house that's 4,000 square foot, 3,000 square foot, when they don't want that. What do you think about those reforms that we're trying to make, where the lot size requirements are diminished and the square foot of the house, they can build basically whatever size house they want?
I'm all for that. Just wanting to have good, affordable, safe housing should be something that we all strive for, everybody in America to have a safe, affordable home. When we think about some of our developments in the township where I live, I'm down in Columbia Township near Brooklyn. You can't have a private driveway, for example. If we wanted to say buy 5 acres and we want to split that 3 or 4 ways, and you build a house, I build a house, and a couple other people do as well, we can put in a private road, and many people have them because they've been grandfathered in, but now the township would require that to be built to county specs, for example. Even though it'll never be turned over to the county as a public road, they require that additional input cost as a county road, and that alone is going to eliminate, maybe 2 or 3 family members that all want to live by one another. So what's wrong with that? Yeah,
that's things like that. Just they need to be changed. Then we need to get the property owner back their rights. I think when we talk about lot size, you're in the Brooklyn area primarily, right?
Hey, I'm down here in Brooklyn, okay?
You have good pizza down there?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
I think, now you made me forget what I was going to say, Tim.
Go Clavon's.
Yeah, right. Clavon's has fantastic pizza, by the way. Yeah, I think when you look in, especially at the first-time home buyer or somebody that wants to build a home that's newer, the average homeowner, first-time home buyer in Michigan now is 39 years old. So we've cut out a whole group of people that want to buy a house or even build a house but can't. And part of that is the square foot size, the lot size and all that. But another thing that I think we're missing out on across the state, and as a builder, I built several of these, but in most areas in the state, or a lot of areas you can't, and that's accessory dwelling units. And you talked about that a little bit earlier. How often do you see that? A lot of the detractors will say, well, those diminish the value of the home, and people are just going to slap, mobile homes on the side of a house or whatever. That's not reality. Most of these are rooms over a garage that get turned into a living space, or the actual garage or something attached to the house, or even freestanding small little homes. What are you seeing as a need for that in the market where you're working?
I can't put it into a real defined percentage, but I can tell you pre-COVID, we were seeing a very definite increase in people asking for opportunities for alternative dwelling units. So because you don't hear the term very often, if it's okay, let me just vet what that looks like. So you have a couple that, let's just say they're 65, 70 years old, and they are wanting to be able to have a home. And in that home, they would like to be able to have their children that are, let's just say they're in their mid-30s. And those folks have gotten maybe 2.5 kids. So grandma and grandpa want to live with son and daughter and the grandchildren, and they all want to be together so they can provide a good, safe family unit, childcare, and all those kinds of things. That's really the premise of what an alternative or accessory dwelling unit is often comprised of. It's not. It's so anti-American not to have families want to live together. If you go back into pre-World War II and you take a look at where we were at earlier in the centuries, or certainly in the 1800s, but in the early 1900s, families always lived together. It was just after World War II we started seeing that separational thing. So we're not talking about anything that's unusual to our country, but yet zoning alone will say, nope, we're not going to allow that. The demand, though, has really shot up dramatically after COVID because of the price increases. When we saw such large increases in prices, that's all of a sudden where people are saying, wow, just with the cost of home insurance, the cost of property taxes, the cost of the home itself, I'm really struggling to afford this. And mom and dad, who are maybe in their 60s, are saying, we're getting ready to retire, and we're not sure how we're going to do this with our retirement income. This would make so much more sense if we just lived together.
Yeah.
What is wrong with that? That seems like a great solution to a challenging problem, and it brings families closer together. So that kind of legislation, how could anybody argue that's a bad thing?
Yeah, it's a shame that you have to get permission from municipalities to be able to have your family live with you and keep them close and be affordable for everybody. And getting that permission slip is just crazy. I think that is one of the things that really I would love to see passed, is that ADU one especially. That's near and dear to my heart.
Mine too. I completely agree with you. I'd love to sit down with somebody that doesn't feel that there's value and try to understand why they don't think that that's a good thing for families.
Right, exactly. When you're taking a new homeowner, a buyer out, what are the things that they're primarily looking for? Are they looking for 5,000 square foot, 4,000 square foot, 1,500 square foot homes? What's the appetite from the people you work with on a daily basis for new homes or for homes?
Well, again, if we come back to that barbell I mentioned earlier, the people that are in the middle, or the bar, if you will, have generally got a budget that lets them do whatever they want. At the retirement end or the first-time home buyer end, it's not really so much about what they want, it's about what they can afford. And so oftentimes they're being forced to try to go towards something that's more towards, let's just say, 950 to 1,200 square feet, oftentimes just purely out of affordability, but sometimes functionality too. Many of the seniors, for example, they're completely happy with something that's 900 square feet because they just don't need huge rooms.
Right. Yeah, there's so much good things in this bill that are going to really benefit. And I've heard the notion that, we need to get inflation down and the cost of building materials and tariffs and all that stuff. Yes, those are things that would help drive down costs as well as property taxes and other things. But even if you got rid of those things today, you still couldn't build the houses that people want to build and that we need the way the things are zoned. There's 1,300 townships in the state. Everybody's got a different idea what good is. And it just creates confusion. It creates a lack of affordable housing, and we need to change those things. And I really appreciate you being here. What are your final thoughts? What do you want to tell the people that are listening today?
Well, I just want to get people to recognize some of the hidden costs that have been brought in. If we take a look at just basic things like, what's the cost of a sewer tap? If you were going to build, when they say, well, you can't bring down the cost of a 2x4, and that's probably unfortunately true. But when you take a look at a sewer tap in the state of Michigan, it was $5,000 back in 1990. I'm sorry, it was $1,400 in 1990. Now it's averaging more like $5,000 or more. It's a 275% increase versus inflation of 138%, because a lot of municipalities are using that as a way as a moneymaker. And by it becoming strictly as a moneymaker, it's discouraging somebody from building. We could say the same thing about septic systems. They were about $5,000 in the year 2000. They're about $13,500 now. 170% increase versus 86% for inflation. And why is that? Well, it's because of the mandatory systems that are being placed and put into requirements. When we had the previous 100 years, we didn't have systems anywhere near what they're requiring right now. And again, most of it is arbitrary numbers that somebody's pulling out. It's not data-driven requirements. So I'd like people just to realize that zoning, townships, by their enforcement has really restricted what we can do, but also the governmental impacts of a lot of our health departments and things have also brought a hidden layer of cost that has made it so much more unaffordable for any builder, a homeowner as well as a professional builder. Collectively, that's why we're strangling to death with a lack of housing.
Yeah.
And I think those are so important. So no matter what side of a table somebody might sit on, I think we can all come together and agree that breaking down these barriers, breaking down these limitations, restoring some freedom and opportunity for people is so much in line with just the common sense of being a strong American family that I just think the more people understand that, the more they're going to want to get behind it. And why wouldn't they want to?
Yeah, exactly. And common sense isn't so common anymore. But thanks for being with us, Tim, and we will definitely have you back to talk about these things and all the rest of the things we want to do in the future.
I would love to do that, and I thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great day.
You too.